Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the cafe. It is Wednesday, April 2nd. Here we go. It's about to rain. Anyway, welcome back to the cafe, guys. Today is another coffee and a cold case day. We're looking into the Lake Bodom murders, folks. For those of you that aren't familiar, you're about to be. This is a case that inspired the Friday the 13th movie franchise. Crazy story is all I can say. Mama Bear will be joining me here shortly. That being said, you guys know the business. Make sure you share this out. Hit that like button if you will, please, and thank you. Let's get this thing moving. Hello, hello, and welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. All right. I don't know where she's at. She should be here soon. There we go. Leave a little DNA. Thank you. Good morning, Miss Denise. Miss Amy Conway, welcome back to you. Miss Michelle Epple, Eddie is in the house with one maiden. Not great to see you. Alicia J, welcome back to you. Miss Stormy's in the house. Hello and welcome. Let me see. Mr. Steven with Crime Officers. Good to see you, sir. Trish Crow, welcome back to you. Great to see you today. Again, guys, please share this out if you will and hit that like button, please. And thank you. Good morning to all you beautiful people. Welcome. Thank you, Stormy. Hang on here. All right. All right. Here we go. Something's happening. I don't know what the hell's going on. Be real. Good morning. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Thank you, Alicia, guys. Please make sure to check out The Last 24. That's our Mikey's channel. I have one. Got me stumped. I need to get a new cord so that I can run it back through that. Um, I haven't been using it, which is partially what my audio issues have been. Plus, I have a soundboard and all that stuff too. But I have to get a new pig nose, uh, the cord, that thing, to get it to work right. Thank you again, Alicia, for that. But I do have one. I just have to hook it in. Right now, I'm running direct, which I don't like. But I have a better microphone. I need to get a new cord for it. That's all. Buenos dias, Miss Amy, Miss Stormy, Eddie. Still waking up. Drink that coffee. Supposed to be 50 tomorrow. So if I can't tomorrow. Is anybody familiar with this case, by the way? Thank you, Miss Stormy, Miss Wisdom's channel as well. Please check that out. Miss Wisdom does a whole lot in helping to look for the indigenous missing. She's amazing, amazing person with an amazing channel. Very grateful for her. And of course, our Mama Bear's channel, which we need to pin in the link, guys. Give me 1 minute here. That reminded me. Thank you for that. There we go. Okay, 1 minute. There it is. Miss Josie's in the house. Happy hump day to you. All right. It is April 9th. It's a hearing, Michelle. It's a hearing, 2 days of hearings, so the 9th and the 10th. The trial starts in August, the actual trial. Great to see you, brother. Grateful to have you here. Thank you, by the way, for those of you that joined us last night. It was a good show again. Appreciate you all being there. Learned a lot of things. Understood some things a little bit better. Misunderstood some things and got more questions. There's a lot. Ooh, the thunder is roaring out here now. Thank you, Elisa. As always, appreciate that. Was a good panel. Bri guys in the house. Hello, Mr. Brian. How are you, my friend? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, it's thundering and lightning here. Good old Ohio weather. What are they allegedly going to not accomplish on the 9th? Brian, I don't know for a fact, sir. Yeah, you better get back inside the house, Mama Bear. Mama Bear will be joining us once the dog is done taking her for a walk. It's okay, Brian. Horse TV in the house. Welcome, Walt. 21 peeps in the house, 18 likes. Guys, please make sure to hit that like button. And don't forget to hop on over to Mama Bear's side and hit the like button for her as well, if you will. Like I said, she'll be in here once she gets done walking, having the dog walk her. Oh, I will definitely be covering the hearings as long as they're open hearings. The ones that are open, I will cover. I'll be covering everything from there on out. I mean, I've covered most everything, but I will be. And of course, the trial. From gavel up to gavel down, I will be covering it, beginning to end, 100%. So as much as they produce and allow us to do it, I will be playing it. It's gonna be long days, but it's worth it. to get the truth. You know, you know, you know. If you know, you know. Come on in, guys. Get seated. Grab your coffee. This is a very crazy and weird case, guys. It really is. Um, like I said, it was the one we're looking at today. It was it inspired the movie Friday the 13th, so that'll tell you a whole lot in itself. Let's see here. I do want to thank everyone here. Again, guys, we're continuously growing. We broke 10,000 subscribers and growing. It's just going and going. So keep sharing it out. I appreciate that so very much. And welcome to everybody that's new. I want to welcome all the new meatballs to the sauce as well. Thank you for that. And thank you, Michelle, for that again. Went to bed with my brain thinking about so much from our day. There was a lot, Eddie. There was a lot to talk about, a lot to think about. I was doing the same. I always do. Always do. There's always so much to think about in this case. It's crazy. Very much so. And guys, please make sure, if you will. I noticed a lot of people are doing it, especially with the afternoon shows and stuff. But for this too, please do. I want to know what your thoughts are. Leave me some comments in the comment section, please, and thank you. And Mom Bear as well. If you're over there on her side of things, please leave comments. We love comments. I love to look at them. I love to read them. I love to respond to them. But I can't if they're not there. So please leave us some comments on what your thoughts are about the things that we cover. Also, if you will, please share this out throughout your social media platforms, so on and so forth. And be sure to follow our social medias here on the at the cafe. We have a Facebook as well as a TikTok. I don't think we need any more than that, but Miss Sherry Wisdom Speaks does an amazing job with our Facebook, and our own Brandy B, the OG, does absolutely amazing things with our TikTok. So please follow those as well if you like those platforms, of course. And of course, we are on Twitter or X. So follow that too, guys. Appreciate you very much for all that. Bonnie Bailey, hello, dear, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Awesome, Be Real. Thank you for joining us. I didn't know you've been around that long. It's wonderful to know that. I've got a lot of you guys that have been here for 2, 3 years now, and I really appreciate you guys for that. Going to Megadeth concert. Dude, I'm jealous. I am jealous, jealous, jealous. I love one of my favorite bands of all times. Dave Mustaine himself. He was the original guitar player and lead singer for Metallica, for those of you that don't know that. He started Metallica with James Hetfield um, and Lars Ulrich, the drummer. Didn't know if anybody knew. Nobody probably cares, but that'll tell you how into them I am. Leslie and Billy, my love, good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you so very much. You are appreciated. I hope you have a blast, Steven. That's awesome. I haven't been to a concert like that in a while. It's been a while. For sure. Definitely been a while. Let's see here. Hmm. Miss Sassy is in the house. Miss Cass. I understand, Brian. It's okie doke. No worries. I like all kinds of music, you guys, but that's one of my favorites. Theatering. Yeah, no, I get it, Brian. I get it. I listened to everything, guys. I let him come home last night. Now our doctor's online. Oh, is he doing okay? Is he doing okay, Leslie? Again, let him know we're thinking about him, and he's in all of our thoughts and prayers for sure. Oh shit. Okay, Robert. I know who you are. I do know who you are. You have been here for a minute. Good to have you here, brother. Grateful to know that you're here. And speaking of Randy Furr, good to see you, my friend. Randy's been here for a long time too. Appreciate you, sir. Hope you're doing good, Randy. Wonderful to have you here, sir. Hope you guys are gonna. I think you guys will be into this cold case is quite interesting. I'll say that much. Wonderful to see you, Randy. Barbara Streisand. Hey, hey. Yeah, I hope he's doing better, Leslie. I do. I really do. Right? Right, Robert Bell. I haven't. I wondered where Robert went. Well, now we know. Be real. That's awesome. Absolutely, Randy. Randy's been here a long time, folks. Appreciate this guy very much. Think he's okay. Scary, but he'll be okay. Listen, it's not a joke at all. I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad that, he's home. And of course, he's got you to take care of him, which is amazing. And everything will work out well, Leslie. I know that for a fact, but you will stay. You both will stay in my thoughts and prayers for sure. Bada bing, bada boom. I don't have to do that anymore because we fixed that. Good morning, Mama Bear. You there?
I can't hear anything.
I hear you slightly. You're sounds like you're far away. Are you there? Yes, no. Let me try something here. Okay. She's having some technical issues. She's coming. Get it right. Who's your favorite musician, Brian? Your absolute favorite? Boca Raton. How's your hands feeling today, Brian? Miss Bonnie Bailey. Miss Bonnie Bailey, our heart is in the house. We see her. I hope you're feeling okay today, Miss Bonnie. Where's your mom at, Cass? Is she okay? Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that, brother, very much. They're doing okay, Brian? Okay. Good to hear, bud. Good to hear. Mama Bear will be back. I type better drinking. There she is. Hello. Goodbye. There she is. I see you. I don't know. When I don't see you, I worry about you. So you're okay. You're good. I do all my vacuuming stuff early. And Josie always licking the like there. I appreciate that, Miss Josie. Good to have you here today. Um, very much appreciated. Is it snowing? No, it's thundering and lightning right now. I do love the vacuum. I do. I do love my vacuum. It's the real thing. It works very well. Thank you again. Anybody that chooses again to donate via Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal, guys. That's not something we expect here, but it is very much appreciated. That helps me to keep the bills paid so that I can keep StreamYard going and all the other little background things that we got to pay for to keep this up and rolling. So thank you for those of you that choose to do that and support us in that sense. Besides that, thank you to everybody that is here supporting us just in general. That means everything to us, guys. That is how we are growing and becoming even better every day and doing the best that we can. So trying to make some changes here to freshen some things up. As you can see, little different backgrounds and different intros and outros. And I'm going to be changing up the way we do the cold case stuff here coming up too, making it a little bit more personal, I guess you could say. And all that fun stuff. So as we grow in different ways. So wonderful, wonderful. Absolutely, Leslie. You tell him that we're thinking about him all the time, always in our thoughts and prayers, and best wishes as to getting better for 100%. Yeehaw. Yes, happy hump day to everybody. Again, please, if you will, keep Miss Wisdom Speaks in our prayers, guys. She's still not 100%, as she's not here. So please keep her in your thoughts and prayers that she heals up quickly so we can get her back to where she should be with all of us here in the family. Ruby Rombia. Miss Paula's in the house. Good to see you, Miss Paula. From my understanding, she's doing okay. She just had some stuff she had to deal with. She's getting better day after day, so she'll be back soon. She's a tough cookie. She doesn't let much keep her down. I'm sorry, Cassie. I have it the setting like always on the lowest setting. I don't even touch that. I haven't touched that in a long time. That's why you shouldn't have said anything, Cass. Shouldn't have said nothing. Nothing. Well, as soon as we get Mama Bear in here, I'll get this rolling. Krista and I get Lady to the vet tomorrow. There you go, Brian. Yeah, if you have premium, you won't get ads. That's what I under. I don't get ads when I watch other stuff, but I have, luckily, a premium. Let's see here. Um. Oh, sorry about that.
I can hear you now. Yay.
Good stuffs. Good. Now all you got to do is link everything in, and we're good to go. Links is already pinned. Can you see me?
Yep. I can.
I really like that new. Well, you see, I turned it to my avatar too, right?
Oh, cool. That looks good.
You did a great job with that. Mama Bear created a new background for the cover page for the channel, and I liked it so much that I made it my avatar. I love it. She did amazing with that. Very cool. All right. Hi.
But I don't think we're linked.
No, it's not linked yet. Not yet. We also have been working on the store, the True Crime Cafe store. We're going to be adding some new stuff in there, taking some stuff out, changing some stuff up, and so there'll be definitely be some new and different merchandise available in there soon. Oh yeah, Brian. It's awesome. Groot, welcome. Good to see you. It's been a while. Hope you're doing good. What the hell? I noticed the socks I originally bought at Gabe's for 13 and at QBC for 24 are now listed at 37. I may have to quit wearing socks soon. All right. Well, thank you for that info, Walt. Appreciate that much. Billy sausage. He wants sausage. He said, thank you very much. Sausage. I don't know if you can have that, my friend. Take it slow, brother. Take it slow. Yes, there we go. Again, Mikey's channel is listed here. The link right there. Please check it out. You will not be disappointed. The last 24. It's becoming something special. Check it out. Click that link. Subscribe if you have not yet done that. Please and thank you. Along with our lovely Miss Wisdom Speaks channel. Miss Wisdom does a whole lot of work for the missing indigenous, and she's amazing with it. And please support that if you can. Please and thank you. We will be getting back soon, guys. I'm working on getting something set up for me to have a regular feed to be able to share the missing posters that I was doing before the shows. That's going to come back soon. So just so you guys don't think it's never coming back, it is. We will get some pink stuff. There's a lot of colors in there, you guys. We can get a lot of pink different. I think my mods should all have their own shirts. So we'll put that all together too with their names and all that as well. I noticed that a lot. A lot. All right, guys, we're about ready to get this rolling. This is like I said, this is a crazy case. Oh, hold on. There she be.
Now I can't hear you. Why is that?
You can't hear me?
That is weird.
I can hear you. They go, which one of the coffee's gift flavors do you favorite taste so far? I like them all, Michelle. I thank you so much again, Zelda. This today, I think the hazelnut one is one of my favorites. This is coconut cream pie. I think it is. This is pretty good too. They're all amazing. They are all amazing. I love it, love it. Not yet, Brian. She's still working on it.
This is getting annoying.
What's going on? Um, she's having, yeah, it's technical issues. She's not able to hear me very well. Thank you, SRB. There is a link for that. Yes. Yes. There'll be some new stuff coming through there soon. Thank you, Alicia. Summertime t-shirts and shorts and all fun stuff. Yes. Major Dickinson's Pete's Coffee Pods and just add flavor creamer. Oh, well, I do that too. I mean, just plain coffee. There's nothing wrong with that. I use the powdered creamers, sugar free, of course. So Miss JC, welcome. Good to see you today. No, we're trying to get Mama Bear linked up, Mike. She is. She is now linked. And her link is pinned at the top of the chat. You're muted, Bear. I didn't know if you knew that. Hold on. You're okay. Can you hear me? Oh, wait a minute. We're about to get it rolling now. All right. Get things moving here. For those of you that might not be familiar, I'm going to show you a little bit of something here. But my stuff to work now. Morning, everyone. 39 peeps in the house, guys. Make sure to hit that like a button if you will, please, and thank you. Oh, wait a minute. By the way, I seen Val Kilmer died this morning. That's crazy. All right, guys, I'm going to start this. Mom Bear's just getting her sound to work. It'll be all right. We'll get it on track here. I'm going to get this kicked off here. All right. So that movie franchise we all know from the 80s, the Friday the 13th movies. Love them, of course, as my thing. But the case that we're looking at today inspired that movie. Okay. Um, Not exact, obviously, they changed things, but crazy case. It's called the Lake Bodom murders. It happened in there's another country, of course, where Lake Bodom is. For those of you that aren't familiar, and I'll let this explain it. That's how crazy this was, that it could inspire that type of a movie. So there's that. Give me a minute here. All right, let me see. Let me get this up and moving. And there's no news for me to be able to show because it's in another area that doesn't speak English in some ways. This was partially near the Helsinki area. All right, guys. Give me a moment here. Welcome, Maria Wood. Thank you for joining us. Says I'm a newbie from the UK thought I'd listen and check everyone's views. Thank you for joining us, Maria. It's wonderful to have you here. Should look into Audrey May. I will. I'll write that down, Josie. 25 years. Wow. Okay. Hello, Miss Kim from CLK Creations. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Now, come on and load. I don't know why it's so slow today. Come on. My apologies again, everybody. Good Lord, StreamYard is bugging today. Hold on a minute. Okay, so gives you a quick. It's like a quick tour. Of course, they had to add something to this because of what it inspired. But thank you, Josie, again. Uh, it's a quick tour of the area that this case took place in. Don't mind the music in the background. They added that for effect, of course. And it's a beautiful area. Lake Bodom is absolutely beautiful. That's what we're talking about today, critical. The Lake Bodom murders. And that's still unsolved. This is the area. This is the real area. This isn't. So anyway, that's it. That is our Lake Bodom. All right. Now we get started. Good old Harry Manfredi. That's who did all the music for those movies, by the way. All right. I think it is, bro. I think it is. I haven't seen anything new on it, but I think it still is.
Of June 1960, four teenagers.
All right, let me know how the audio works, you guys. Like I said, it's doing its thing today again.
On the 4th of June 1960, 4 teenagers set out on a motorcycle trip for the idyllic shoreline of Lake Bodom in Espoo, Finland. Armieli Björklund and Anja Mäki were 15-year-olds attending a vocational college, while their two boyfriends, Seppo Boisman and Niels Gustafsson, were two 18-year-old electricians. During the previous spring, the boys had toured around the fringes of Helsinki in search of the perfect campsite. Niels had remembered a place that he frequented as a child. It was a peninsula on the shores of Lake Bodom. On seeing the location, the boys decided it would be the perfect place to spend the Pentecost holidays. When the holidays arrived, Seppo commandeered a tent from his workplace, told his parents he had planned a camping expedition with friends, and began rinsing the dirt off with a hose. While Seppo prepared, Niels informed his parents about the trip, but made no mention of the girls, as they still had to convince their parents to let them go. It was only a year before that a gruesome killing of 2 girls had taken place in Tuulilahti, near the Heinävesi campsite. Understandably, this had created fear amongst the people of Finland, and there was a notable decline in the number of people camping. Following much pleading, the girls were given permission, and they earnestly set about getting things ready for the much anticipated trip. The youngsters set out at 3:30 p.m. on a cloudless and beautiful 4th of June. They arrived at their destinations somewhere between 4:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. Many people had taken advantage of the pleasant weather conditions, and the lake was busy with the sound of young and old taking a dip in the water or fishing on the lake shore. After going to a nearby kiosk to buy ice cream for the girls and cans for the boys, they returned to the site and set up the tent. It was around 7:30 p.m. and the sun would set in 2 hours, only to arise again at 3:06 a.m. The 4 talked, cooked sausages, and generally amused themselves. Niels Gustafsson would state later that they went to bed at around midnight. This piece of information is contradicted by a diary entry of Anja's. Her diary notes, 5th day, June 5th, camping at Lake Bodom. Seppi and Nisse were drunk, up at 2 a.m. Seppi is fishing. The tent's opening faced towards the lake, with the youth's feet towards the mouth. Anja slept on the right side of the tent, with Seppo beside her while Armieli was on the left side flanked by Niels. Not long after Anja's diary entry, 3 of the 4 will be mercilessly killed, while the 4th would suffer some significant injuries of his own. It has been speculated that the attack must
Yes, it happened in 1960. I'm sorry. True seeker.
have happened somewhere between 3 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. June 5th was no different from the day before. The sun was out, the birds were singing, and the sky was clear. Looking out on this fine day, Esko Johansson, a carpenter from Espoo, had decided to make the best of it. He rounded up his 2 sons and neighbour's son. The youngsters set off in advance of Esko. He would follow them shortly by bike. As he cycled on a bike path that ran along Lake Bodom, he noticed a collapsed tent and was alarmed to see, lying on top of it, a young man bloodied and in noticeably bad shape. He immediately rushed to a telephone box near the Espoo water treatment facility and raised the alarm.
Trigger warning. Content may include sensitive or violent content not suitable for all viewers. Feel free to step out if needed.
Just in case. Some people may seem certain pictures might affect them, that's all.
It was the ambulance service that arrived first. They were in the process of transporting Niels Gustafsson to the hospital when the police reached the scene. The constable of the Espoo Police Department shortly thereafter made an out-of-breath phone call to the duty officer. He stated, "I have to arrange a big operation because there is a damnable thing that has happened at Lake Bodom. There are 3 bodies here and 1 person is injured."
This was in Finland, Alicia. The Girl Scout murders were here in the U.S., so definitely, if that's what you mean, like distance-wise, yeah, it's definitely a distance away. This was 1960, but it does. I know what you're saying. It does have the same feel in a sense.
Ermieli Björklund, Anja Mäki, and Seppo Boisman had been murdered, while Niels Gustafsson had been injured. The investigation commenced immediately, and a large number of police officers were called in to aid the investigation. The site abounded with reporters and curious locals who wandered freely around the site alongside the police. In subsequent years, these actions were roundly criticised, but we will talk more about that later. News of the murders quickly circulated on radio throughout Finland, and the pressure was on for the police to apprehend the perpetrator. Police stopped cars at roadblocks and searched them. A dozen search dogs were drafted on the 7th of June. However, they proved useless. After all, the area had been traipsed upon by countless people over the preceding 2 days. Those investigators examining the tent came across a ghastly scene. The tent was perforated with holes and incisions made by a knife blade. Support strings for the tent had been severed so that the tent would fall on the victims, rendering them defenseless against the vicious onslaught. Outside the tent, leaning on pine trees, were the boys' motorcycles.
Welcome, Digital. Did they have you here today?
Reports suggest Boisman was found on his back, lying at the side of the door. I take this to mean he was lying parallel with the opening of the tent. He was wrapped up in the fabric of the tent and had received stab wounds to his chest and throat. His head had been bludgeoned and he had sustained a broken jaw. The cause of death was blood inhalation, due in all probability to a perforated lung. There are discrepancies regarding the position of the girls. One Finnish report states that the girls were found flanking one another, with their heads facing in opposite directions. Other reports state that Ermieli Björklund was outside of the tent, while Anja Mäki was found on top of the tent in a fetal position. Incongruities also consist about the positioning of Niels Gustafsson. Some reports suggest he was laying on his stomach, half in and out of the tent, while there are reports he was on top of the tent, laying across or transverse to the girls. I am unsure as to why there is much contradictory information about the positioning of the victims. There were signs of overkill in the murder of Ermieli Björklund. She had been stabbed 15 times in the neck and face, bludgeoned, and had defensive wounds on her arms. She was in a state of undress from the waist down. One of her trouser legs had been pulled off entirely, while the other was halfway down the other. Several items were strewn around the campsite. Police later determined that certain items were missing. They included motorcycle keys, wallets, watches, and cigarettes, Seppo's knife, and both boys' shoes. It has been said that a soft drink lid was found bobbing on the surface of the water near the camp. Fingerprints were lifted off of it, but they were never linked to anybody. Niels and Seppo's shoes were later found 600 meters away along the road to Lake Bodom. The taking of some of these items appears baffling. Why would the killer have taken motorcycle keys and left the motorcycles? And if he had committed the murder at the time suggested by police, he ran the risk of being spotted, rummaging through packets and taking watches off arms while the sun shone brightly. The taking of wallets and watches is not so hard to explain. Maybe robbery was the motivation. But why take the keys? Did he plan on returning to the scene? Was he spooked and forced to make a quick exit? Or were they merely a cache of souvenirs? One very confusing piece of evidence was a pillowcase. It had been twisted and tied with elastic bands at either end. Investigators never found out what the purpose of this improvised item was for. Blood and semen were found on the pillowcase, but they could not determine who the blood belonged to. However, there is speculation that it is a mixed deposit from multiple victims. This may have misled investigators in the 1960s. They may well have suspected that it was the blood of an unknown assailant. But I must stress, this is speculative and based on my research of forensic capabilities during the period concerned. The semen was not matched to any of the teenage boys, and this creates a larger problem. Other items of evidence have been lost to time. Police found a blanket that had been laid on the floor.
No, I don't believe this is Mikey. He sounds like him, but it's not from that chapter. This is we got the footage we're using is via mystery scope. Again,
There was also a leather jacket that was used as a pillow. These items were returned to the victim's family members and subsequently destroyed. Around 4,000 people were interviewed by police following the gruesome murders. Some notable witnesses were found, 3 of whom had significant evidence. The first witness of notable interest was a woman living on the west side of the lake. She had seen 2 men fishing at around 4 a.m. These 2 men have never been identified. One of the questions I have about the case is how the killer used both a knife and a blunt object. Is there a possibility that there is more than one killer? Some have said the fishermen could have been Seppo and Niels. However, this is contradicted by Niels, who claims he was fishing at another location. If it was not either of the 2 victims, why haven't these 2 men come forward in what was, and still is, a highly publicized case? Other witnesses included 2 birdwatchers, Kalevi Happalainen and Heikki Salonen. It is said they heard voices coming from the direction of the tent. It may well have been the murmurings of the victims as they desperately tried to stay alive. Shortly after, at around 6 a.m., some sources say 6:10 a.m., they walked by the campsite and noticed the collapsed tent and a pair of legs on top of the tent, but it cannot be determined whose legs they were. Critically, the boys saw a man with blonde hair walking south, away from the...
Can you see this, Mama Bear? Okay. Are you there? I don't hear you. I just want to make sure everybody can see it okay. Hey, Molly. The cat ate your tardy note. That's fine. Okay, no worries.
The scene. Salonen stated in a 2003 article that he and his friends saw a person dressed in light clothes slip in behind one of the beech bushes. At the time, they simply believed he was going to fetch water for coffee or brush his teeth. Another witness, by the name of Olavi Kivalati, was fishing west of the campsite. He says that at about 6 a.m, he saw a blonde man walking through the area with a light-coloured jacket or shirt and dark trousers. The man was described as between 20 and 30, around 5'8", with a regular build and light hair. After the arrest of Gustafsson in 2004, Olavi stated, "The murderer cannot have been Gustafsson. I think the police have a man that is too young." In another interview, he added that the man he saw was about 50 meters away, creeping towards the water pumping station, where he disappeared from view. Many have suggested that Olavi's not a reliable witness due to a case of nearsightedness, but his account certainly tallies with those given by the other boys, and the drawing taken by Olavi's description is uncannily similar to that obtained by Gustafsson during hypnosis. When Niels Gustafsson woke up in hospital, his first words were, "How did I get into a motorcycle crash?" He did not remember anything about the murders. When leaving the hospital, he gave the following statement: "I had a total of 10 stab wounds to the face. Both the upper and lower jaw had been crushed using a rock or heavy pipe. I also had a number of cuts to my hands and elbows. All the wounds to my head were on the left side, as I was obviously sleeping on my right side. My balance was affected by the attack, and I've had to learn how to walk properly again. I am not sure if I got out of the tent myself or if I was pulled out. It appears as though the killer was trying to drag me to the water. I say this because there were drag marks at the scene. He either gave up trying because he wasn't able, or he was scared of something and could not continue, and he left me lying on the tent cloth." It must be stated that during Gustafsson's trial, it was denied by the police that these drag marks ever existed. Under hypnosis, Niels would describe the events, and he was able to provide a detailed account of the assailant. The description given is remarkably similar to that given by Olavi Kifalhati. In this account, he says that he awoke when the tent fell. During the attack, a large rip was made in the fabric, and through this rip, he was able to get a look at the murderer. There is no information that I could find suggesting that Niels knew anything about the description given by Olavi. To complicate the case further, some medical experts have said it is not possible for someone suffering from amnesia to give such an account under a state of hypnosis. I can't be sure if this is true, but if it is, it does raise a few questions. Three figures stand out as the most prominent suspects in the case. However,
Welcome, Miss Lacey. Good to see you today. Truth Seeker, Rowena. Wonderful to see you guys. Everybody, please make sure to pop on over to Mom Bear's side of things and hit that like button if you will. Please and thank you. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. You know the drill, and I appreciate that so very much. Mom Bear's link is pinned at the top of the chat. It just takes a second. I appreciate that so very much.
over the years and early on in the investigation, the list of suspects was vast. The first suspect was a man known locally as the Kiosk Man. From the beginning, many locals suspected a man called Carl Gillstrom. He had a reputation for being an aggressive man who detested both hikers and campers. Stories of severing guy ropes on tents, throwing stones at visitors to the area, and setting his pet Doberman on cyclists all give the impression that he was a deeply troubled individual. But is there any evidence linking him to the atrocities? From what I can gather, the simple answer is no. Investigators initially thought Gillstrom to be a possible suspect. They turned over his property looking for any item that might link him physically to the crime. However, nothing was found. They searched his property for a second time in 1969 after his possible suicide by drowning at the same lake where the murders took place. And once again, nothing of importance was discovered. His wife also provided him with an alibi, stating that he had been at home sleeping alongside her on the morning of the murders. This alibi became shaky sometime later when his now widowed wife retracted her story on her deathbed. Apparently, she told people listening that she did not know where he was on the night of the murders. Guilt follows him because it is said he confessed to the crimes on several occasions during bouts of drunkenness. At bottom, however, all of this is local conjecture and gossip. There is nothing definitive linking him to the crime.
Yeah, this is what inspired the Friday the 13th franchise. Yes, Lacey, absolutely. The Lake Bodom murders in Finland.
The second suspect in the case was a former Nazi,
Good point, Eddie.
Hans Assmann. He was also suspected of being a KGB informant, though this is by no means certain. A medical professional by the name of Jorma Palo brought Assmann to the fore as a suspect in 2003, when his book, Bodom's Riddle, was released. Within the pages of this book, Palo recounts an interesting story that occurred on the 6th of June, 1960, at the Helsinki Surgical Hospital. While on shift, Palo remembers meeting the above-mentioned man in very weird, one might say suspicious, circumstances. Hans Assmann arrived at the hospital in a disheveled state. His hands were dirty, and he was wearing blood-stained clothes. No obvious cause for visiting the hospital could be seen, and he was in a state of great anxiety. Medical staff also believed he was feigning unconsciousness, with one report suggesting that they even used a needle to see if this was so. Palo states that he did call the police. However, they did not seem to think the report was noteworthy. He also writes that he kept the blood-stained clothes, believing that the police would be interested in examining them for evidence linking Assmann to the crime. Further credence is given to this story of Paulo's by the fact that Assmann resided only 3 miles away from the scene of the crime, and his appearance bears notable similarities to the sketches given by both Olavi and Gustafsson. It is said that when the first sketch was released, he cut his hair. There is also a picture taken at the funeral that shows an unidentified man bearing a striking and eerie resemblance to the sketch handed out by police. Some have suggested that it is none other than Assmann. If it is not, it would be interesting to know who the man is. 37 years after the crime, once again, it is another person on his deathbed. Assmann was asked by a journalist about the murders at Bodom. He simply stated, "I suppose you expect me to tell you about those tent and knife things. I have to disappoint you. I will not speak about the details. I will not admit nor deny things." The phrase, "I will not speak about the details," does seem to be an odd way of talking about something you had no involvement in. Does it indicate he is holding back information, or is it simply a turn of phrase? Investigators have said they did not look into Assmann because he had a strong alibi. This alibi was not made public until the trial of Niels Gustafsson. It was at this time that we heard the alibi was given by a landlord and his wife. In the aftermath of the murders,
Be safe, Stormy, and thank you for joining us.
Gustafsson led a pretty normal life, considering the events that happened on that June morning. However, all that was to change when police reopened the case in 2004. They had discovered blood residue belonging to the 3 victims on Gustafsson's shoes. It was concluded that whoever the killer was must have been wearing them during or after the slaying. The police also had an interesting motive for the actions of that night. They proposed the idea that Niels had committed the crimes in a jealous rage instigated by an incident that occurred between him and his girlfriend, Hermiele. Subsequent to this incident, Niels had been stopped from entering the tent and had left the area in a state of anger. He returned when his camping companions were asleep, cut the guy rope, attacked Seppo, and received a kick from him, which broke his jaw. Once Seppo was out of the way, he turned his attention to the girls, saving most of his anger for Hermiele, who had rejected him. This theory was bolstered by the entry of a new witness, who came forward with a story that dovetailed nicely with the motive proposed by the police. The new witness claimed that the two boys had paid a visit to her and her friends late that night. Their camp was situated 1 kilometre away on the shoreline of Lake Bodom. The witness stated that both Niels and Seppo were intoxicated, and Niels had attempted to begin a fight with his friend. Police claim that this is another motive for the slayings. From the get-go, this new witness is odd and several questions arise. Why had it taken 44 years for her to come forward, and why only her? Considering the gravity of the case, it seems unbelievable that she would simply stay quiet. I have come across articles from Finnish sources saying that the woman could not even remember the names of the people she went camping with. If this piece of information is true, it makes one wonder why the police utilized her as a credible witness at all. Other questions arise about the timeline too. Do police believe that after the altercation between Seppo and Niels at the new witness's campsite, that they returned to their tents, and on arrival, Niels was then told he could no longer sleep there and went off again only to return and commit the murders? Or maybe after the altercation, Niels allowed Seppo to return alone, waited a while, and then went out and did the deed. The evidence based on the shoe is far more compelling. Modern blood splatter analysis indicated that the killer was wearing the shoes.
Data, we can see your Discord.
If we are to take the evidence as accurate, you have to wonder why the killer would slip into another person's shoes, commit the crime, walk away from the scene, and discard them 500 meters away.
How did that even happen? That was weird. I didn't touch that. Anyway, sorry guys. I didn't mean to interrupt the thing. Jesus.
None of that sounds at all plausible, so there's one of two conclusions one can come to. Niels wore the shoes while killing the other three, or the conclusions reached by investigators were flawed and the blood splatter occurred while the shoes were situated outside the tent. What seems strange is there is no mention of an analysis of Boisman's shoes. Is it possible that they may well have had similar traces to those found on Gustafsson's? If they didn't, then the prosecution's case may well have been strengthened. The investigation team still had to explain the injuries inflicted upon Niels. Naturally, they put forward the idea that they were self-inflicted and an attempt to cover his tracks. Evidence linked to the shoes look at first sight rather convincing, but there are so many other articles of this investigation that don't add up. A great article on the case at darkideas.net sums these discrepancies up nicely. They are as follows. It does not appear that Gustafsson's clothes were kept for testing. There is no mention of him being covered in blood splatter from other victims. How could he kill 3 people and only get blood on his shoes? He was found wearing socks. There is no explanation for how he walked back to the tent without leaving evidence on his bare or socked feet. Could the same blood splatter pattern have occurred if part of the tent fell over only the top half of the shoes? The birdwatchers thought the blonde man may have been Niels. Olavi Kivalhati did not think it was him. All victims, including Niels, suffered broken jaws. This suggests the same attacker using the same technique on all 4 victims. Niels only had superficial defense wounds on his arm that he could have done himself. But are we to believe that he hit himself on the back of the head hard enough to leak cerebral fluid, or cut into his cheek until his teeth were exposed? Niels' blood was found inside the tent, suggesting he was attacked whilst inside, along with his friends. There is no way anyone could convict Niels without reasonable doubt. The Finnish court came to the same conclusion, and he was awarded €44,000 in compensation. Please let us know what you think of this case in the comment section below, and please like, share, and subscribe to Mystery Squad.
Okay, well, there's that portion of the case there. Give me a minute here. Hold on, everybody. And the case is still unsolved, as we all know. As it stated, it happened sometime between 4 and 6 a.m. I don't know. The way it was explained to you guys, which is strange to me, is that the killer that did this did not injure them from inside the tent, but instead had attacked the occupants from outside with a knife, of course, and an unidentified blunt instrument as well, possibly a rock or the end of the knife or something like that, through the sides of the tent. The murder weapons had never been located still. The killer had taken several items which detectives found puzzling, like we all heard. Did you take the keys to the motorcycle so that nobody that may have survived could have taken the motorcycle, or was it just something that happened? You know what I'm saying? There were thoughts that of course, they thought the person that grabbed the keys to the motorcycle did it out of possibly, what is that called when you do something repetitiously? Habit, out of habit, just grabbed them because they were his. So therefore, that in turn stated that they thought that the killer was, what's his name, of course, Gustafsson. Now, and it states that Gustafsson's girlfriend was found undressed from the waist down, was lying on top of the tent, and had suffered most of the injuries. So they thought that it was possibly why they thought it was him, because of he was flipping out on his girlfriend per se, and because of the fact that she was stabbed multiple times, that it was kind of a crime of passion per se. Alicia, that's another good point. Was it a trophy? Is that why they took the keys? Could be. You know what I mean? Like I said, and you guys heard many suspects that they had. It was some of these names are hard to say. That Gilstrom gentleman, Hans Assmann, as they have it written, Pentti Soinen, and of course, then they arrested Niels Gustafsson. Now, this is the thing that was weird to me with this. I'll read this to you. March of 2004, 44 years after the event, Niels Gustafsson was arrested. In early 2005, the Finnish NBI, which is the National Bureau of Investigation, declared that the case was solved because on new forensic analysis, according to the prosecution's interpretation of the bloodstains, Gustafsson had been drunk and excluded from the tent when he attacked the other boy, getting his jaw broken in a fight which escalated into him committing 3 murders. The trial for that started on August of 2005. Gustafsson's defense lawyer argued that the murders were the work of one or more outsiders, and that Gustafsson would have been incapable of killing 3 people given the extent of his injuries. It had always been known that the shoes that were worn, which we've heard that too in there, by the killer and hidden by him 450 meters or 500 yards away from the tent belonged to Gustafsson, who was found barefoot on top of the tent. Modern DNA analysis was significant for the prosecution as it showed that the 3 murdered victims' blood was on the shoes, but Gustafsson's was completely absent from that. The prosecution said that it followed from the lack of Gustafsson's blood on the shoes that his injuries had occurred at different times to the attack on the murder victims, so that they were different. And that the only explanation of this was that Gustafsson had committed the murders. That's the reason, the main reason why they wanted this guy to be the murderer. Because the wounds that were on him looked like they had happened different than when the other ones, which is crazy to me. Okay. Which is in turn why they believe that they were self-inflicted, so on and so forth. And that's the thing, is that how crazy is it that somebody else may have wore his shoes to do this? Oh boy. If I disappear, guys, it's because I might be in the land of Oz soon. it's storming like shit, like crazy right now. Wind's blowing everything. So if I'm gone, that's why. Where are we at now? Okay, so and that the only explanation they could come up with was that Gustafsson had committed the murders, then faked the theft of the items by hiding them. Further injured himself, and then went back to the tent where he was barefoot, and then he pretended to be unconscious. The prosecution attempted to bolster their case by alleging an identification by two bird watchers of Gustafsson was as the tall blonde man at the scene of the crime, an assertion that he had been overheard making an incriminating remark, and also that a decade after the events, he had boasted to a woman about his guilt. So basically went and bragged about what he did, supposedly. Yeah, I may have to click my heels together here soon. But it is weird. Very weird. Yeah, he did live. He did live, obviously, because they arrested him 40 years later. And it took 44 years for them to come to the conclusion of this, but it still doesn't fit, if that makes any sense, you guys. That's why it's still considered unsolved. Onyx, because here comes the next part of this. If you didn't catch it in there, Onyx. 1 second. I'm sorry. Give me one quick second.
I see you. Yes, SRB? I didn't do nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. That's funny. Did the Mrs. Dago call? I was hoping to scare him, but I don't know, Brian. I had to get the door and I came back and he was gone. Oh, he's on the phone. Don't jinx it, Cass. Jeez. Sorry, Kim. Oh, I got a heads up when I had to walk the dog in the 20-mile-per-hour winds. Because it was coming at my face and I'm fighting the wind. That was not cool. I'm not singing. I done told you guys that. Oh, elevator music. Hold on. I gotta find my elevator music. Oh, it's on the other screen. Let's see here.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. Because of the storms, my wife was having a freak out moment. My apologies.
Is the storming that bad?
This is bad. Anyway.
I told you the winds was coming.
Oh, on October 7th of 2005, Gustafson was acquitted of all those charges, by the way. And the court explained that the verdict is as due to the explained the verdict being due to the prosecution's evidence being inconclusive. Failure to show that Gustafson had a motive appropriate to a crime of such extreme seriousness. And certainly about the facts now being impossible given the time that had lapsed, 44 some odd years. The state of Finland paid him $44,900 for the mental suffering caused by the long remand time, but the public prosecutor refused to sue Finnish newspapers for defamation. Gustafson did not use his right to bring charges against newspapers as an insured party. How crazy is that? So therefore, the case is listed as unsolved. They're stating now that the evidence that they had didn't fit him. They're also stating that it didn't make any sense, basically, that he did it. Who did it? This is crazy. But what they did claim to is that most like, how can I explain this? Most public suspicion, per se, I should say, went towards that Hans Osman, the German-born Finnish citizen. Okay, he lived several, I guess it was kilometers over there from the shore of Lake Bodom. He was very close to where it happened. A series of popular books promulgated a theory that Asman committed the Bodom murders, killings, and other murders actually around that area, and it was not taken seriously by police, as Asman had an alibi for the night of the Bodom murders and was said to have been in Germany during the time of another murder. He was also listed as a Nazi. So, did he do it? Did he not do it? I don't know, but that's what most everybody believes. And I think that they believe that it was him mostly because he was a Nazi. Okay. If he did this, he could do that type thing. However, it did state that on June 6th of 1960, he had shown up at a hospital in Helsinki with bloody clothes on, which was another reason why they said, well, maybe, he moved to Sweden, where he also died in the late 90s. Asman was also a suspect in 5 other murder cases, guys, and even he confessed to one of them on his deathbed, I guess. So that guy is definitely somebody to look at, but there was no proof that they could link him as far as evidence-wise to the actual murder, other than those things that I just told you about. The other guy that they looked at in the 60s was Pentti Soinen. I can't ever pronounce these names. And he was looked at mainly because he was just violent, severely violent, and always flipped out on people, would go after people so many times. And he was in prison, and at that point claimed to one of his inmates that he was responsible for the murders at Lake Bodom. But he was 14 at the time of the murders, which I guess it's still possible, but to take on 3 people, 4 people at 14, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But there was nothing. There was no evidence on him whatsoever. because at 14 years old, he overpowered four other people, and 2 of them were males. So I don't think so. I don't think it was him at all. And I think it was Valdemar Gilstrom. Okay, that was the first person I think they had looked at. Carl Valdemar Gilstrom. I'm sorry, that was that kiosk guy that had the kiosk there from Oita. He was very hostile towards the campers. He did not like campers whatsoever. He didn't like people being around the area there. He was just nasty to people that did that kind of stuff, that showed up to camp and stuff like that, go fishing. He didn't like any of that. People that did any of that stuff for whatever reason. But there was once again, no evidence to link him to anything. And let me see, because the things that dude, that was weird. He would go tear down and cut down people's tents. He would snap people's fishing poles. Just stupid stuff like that. You know what I mean? And he would like run up on people and scream and yell in their faces and like threaten to do certain things to them.
Yikes.
I don't know. Why didn't he move? I know, right? That's what I'm saying. Good point, Bonnie. Why didn't you just move instead of being so nasty to everybody? Hold on here. You know, someone could have switched shoes to keep his own clean. See, that's what I was thinking too. You know, plus, somebody that may premeditate this in their mind per se may have thought, I'm going to put his shoes on, and they'll look at him type thing, maybe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was the whole point, but it took 44 years for anybody to look at him. Okay.
No, I heard that.
It's very weird. Give me a minute here. One moment, you guys. I'm trying to get back to this other thing here. Hold on. Trying to find you guys certain. So hold on a minute here. The thing is the Nils Gustafsson, when they looked into him, okay, the injuries that he had, they bugged me. Crack-a-like-a-boom. Had broken face bones. Okay. Think about that. And the stab wounds that he had, but he survived the whole thing. Now, let me say this, somebody that we've seen this before in other different types of cases where people inflict wounds on themselves to make it look like they were attacked. But to break your own facial, like to break your own jaw and like your cheekbones and stuff, I can't imagine somebody being able to do that. Do you know what I'm saying, Mom Bear?
Yeah.
Doesn't it sound a little much?
Out there? Yeah.
Stabbing with a knife or slicing with a knife, superficially, maybe, yeah. But to break your own jaw, that seems like a lot to me. She's not even in here. I'm talking to myself. Sorry.
You can't hear me?
Maybe she is. Oh, there she is.
It's like you can't hear me?
I couldn't. I can now. Go ahead.
Okay. I was like, I'm talking.
Yeah, I hear you. You're good. I mean, doesn't it seem a little bit much? Like,
yeah, it does.
To break your own jaw. I mean, how could?
Yeah.
People have a hard time inflicting pain on themselves to begin with. I don't know. I think that's a bit much. And
do I need to play the video for you? Thunder and the lightning.
I'm going to sing the Thunder Buddy song here in a minute. And that's what I'm saying, Eddie. I don't believe that they are self-inflicted. I mean, they were pretty serious, okay? Yes, we are under a severe thunderstorm warning. Like I said, if I just go poof, you know why. Whoa, that was close. Lightning. Stay out there. F you, thunder. You can kiss my ass. So, anyway, back to what I was saying. Sorry, guys. Give me a minute here. Okay, so the first, there was a series of big deal details. Yeah, broken facial bones and stab wounds. However, it was reported that he had bruises on his face. He gave a chilling revelation about the one who attacked them as he got a glimpse of the attacker wearing black clothes and having bright red eyes. Bright red eyes. Was it like a vampire? I mean, Jesus. And then they were bludgeoned as well, whether it was a rock or something, but they didn't find any rocks at the scene that had blood all over them. They didn't find anything around that area that had blood all over it from bludgeoning. So that makes it hard. Oh, hold on a minute. That makes it hard too. Okay. One moment here. And the weird thing with this whole thing, the entire thing that's strange to me, the strangest thing. I think I'm scaled. The strangest thing about the whole thing is that the person that did this from the outside of the tent. Do you know what that means? Are you leaving, Brian? Okay, buddy. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you soon, Brian.
Bye, Brian.
So, yeah, he did it from the outside of the tent, which is very strange to me. Granted, you sliced into the tent, but why? That's what I don't understand about that part of it. He did not enter the tent one time, whoever did this. He attacked through the wall and the roof of the tent, which I would imagine would keep like blood splatter and things like that from hitting you as much, I guess. Maybe that's why it was done that way. I don't know. Be careful, Brian. See you soon. And they never found any weapons. Another big issue. And then again, like I said, a lot of the belongings that belonged to the victims were stolen. And then for whatever reason, now see, this is the weird thing. If the killer did not go into the tent to attack, but they found Gustafson's girlfriend on top of the tent on the outside. How did that work out that way is another thing I did. Did they drag her out and lay her there on purpose? What was the deal? I don't know, but this is just so strange to me, the way this whole thing happened and went down. It's very weird. She was stabbed many, many times as compared to the others, which makes me think of crime of passion or a very personal situation. I think that's another reason why they probably looked at him, because it was his girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? And of course, they're saying that she was SA'd because of the way she was dressed. I don't know that they did any testing back then. I don't know. So, and again, going back to it, the one that was suspected locally the most was that, what the hell was his name? Carl Gilstrom, I think, the kiosk owner, because of the way he acted with everybody. But there was absolutely no evidence pointing to him. So there's nobody. There really is nobody to look at for this. And this has been 65 some odd years. And I think what Eddie said earlier is that this will never be solved. And I agree with that. I do. It doesn't get like regular airplay on different things and so on and so forth. And I think most people in that area have given up on this being solved. Yeah, the guy used to throw rocks and all that, cut down the tents and all that, break the fishing poles. That's what everybody looked for, but nothing that was there related to him. So, let me check out what else we have. I still can't believe that after 44 years they arrested this guy. And did all what they did, the trial and everything, and then he was acquitted completely. Makes that's wild to me. And then to go back to the boot situation, the DNA revealed that the blood that was found on the survivor's shoes was for the 3 murdered victims, but none of his own blood was on his boots, on those boots. So if the guy inflicted his own wounds, How did you do that without getting any of your DNA or blood on your own boots? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
They claim, or the prosecution in that claimed that he faked all the missing items by hiding them. I don't believe he injured himself. Like I said, with all those things, I just don't believe it.
I mean, you'd have to be drugged out of your mind, and then you'd be so drugged out of your mind you couldn't do it. I mean,
to break your own jaw. I mean, that takes a lot of strength, you guys. And I don't think that we have or possess enough of our own strength to do those types of damage to our bodies. Does that make
I was
sense?
thinking like using like a hammer or something.
Or maybe bashing your face into a rock, but like,
yeah.
Did you really throw yourself that hard at something to do that? I don't think I could.
No.
I just don't. I don't think I could. Hold on. What county? I'm in Trumbull County, Cassie. Trumbull and Mahoning. Actually, I'm closer to Portage, so Trumbull and Portage. Yeah, and in the prosecution, or the courts, I'm sorry, the courts claimed that the murders had happened so long ago, it was difficult to get enough evidence from the scene. The court had to pay him 44,900 euros for the mental suffering caused by running him through that whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah, which I don't know what, in euros, I don't know what the worth is on that, if it's more or less than what that would be money-wise here.
Yeah.
Right. So by analyzing the DNA that they found at the scene on the evidence that they had, forensic experts had been able to create genetic profiles, allowing for more accurate and reliable comparisons with known individuals. This advancement has brought us one step closer to uncovering the truth behind this decade-old mystery. So if they're going to start, if they have that type of DNA or that type of evidence, DNA evidence, then maybe they can do the whole IgG thing, and maybe it'll bring them somebody else. You know what I'm saying? It says, furthermore, by combining this information with other forensic evidence, such as DNA analysis and ballistic testing, investigators have been able to piece together a more comprehensive understanding of the crime. Let me see here. And then it goes into this whole forensics psychology thing, which has really no bearing on this, explaining the forensic psychology to other crimes. The Lake Bodom murder stands as a chilling reminder of the enduring mysteries that haunt the annals. Sorry, shouldn't have said it like that. Annals, not anals, sorry, of criminal history. But thanks to advancements in forensic science, we are closer than ever to unraveling the truth behind this case. Through DNA analysis, forensic pathology, ballistics analysis, digital forensics, and forensic psychology, investigators have made significant strides in piecing together the events that transpired on that fateful night at Lake Bodom. While many questions remain unanswered, these forensic advances offer hope that justice may one day be served for the victims of this tragic crime. I don't know. I don't feel that this is going to ever get any kind of answers, in my opinion. If that makes sense.
Probably not. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Let me see if I can still pull these pictures up for you guys here. 1 minute. Let's see. Hang on. They made this into a video game. How about that?
What?
Yep. Graphic video game. I'm not even. Wow. Well, they made Friday the 13th into one too.
Yeah.
Hold on. I had a whole thing of wanted to show you guys. Just a minute.
Hello, beautiful Bonnie. How are you?
Miss Boney. Nope. That is not what I wanted. Hold on. It sounds like the storm's moving away from us now, which would be good. All right, load up for me. Please and thank you. And the place, like I said, is very peaceful looking. You know, but yeah, I don't think I would be comfortable going there. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm worried it would happen again, but it's just the thought of it happening there. Period. Just a minute here.
I'm good, hon.
That's where the one band I've listened. I wondered where that came from too. There's a band that I listen. They're called Children of Bodom. It's a metal band, and that's where that came from. Pretty wild. Let's see here. Give it to me, please.
Bye, Randy.
You leaving, Randy? All right, Randy. Thank you for joining us, buddy. One moment. Okay, so sorry about that, you guys. Another piece of information on this that was interesting because it was the 60s, so there's that. I don't know that it should mean anything, but it did. Police never did cordon off the scene like you would a crime scene, which was shown as a major error later on. Obviously, we know that. It's almost immediately when they came to the scene, a crowd of police officers, other people trampled all over the damn campsite.
Oh, jeez.
Right. So that disturbed every bit of the evidence they had, which is another reason why I think it stayed cold for so long. And then on top of all that, they brought in military soldiers to assist with the search around the lake for other victims and the items that were missing and the killer possibly. That in turn,
yeah, like SRB said, they disturbed everything.
Everything was ruined. Everything. Okay. Not to mention, hold on here. There were other suspects that they had looked at, like not as deeply as they looked at the ones we discussed. Okay. There was never anything to link anybody to this. And the only reason I explained to you, like I explained to you, was that Gustafsson was looked at was because of what happened to his girlfriend, because it seemed personal, and the boots. Okay. But again, it's so weird thinking that somebody else may have put somebody else's boots on to commit a murder and then left them. That's so strange to me.
Yeah.
Very, very, very strange. My theory is the guy that was the Nazi, because he lived very close to the area. And I guess it's a stereotype. You think the man could have done what he did in Germany. Maybe, he was he was a bad person all the way around. He did many other things. And so that is kind of what related me to it. But if Gustafsson had nothing to do with this, who else is there? Right. Other than somebody that they haven't looked into, you know what I'm saying? Let me see here. Any thoughts from you on this at all?
No, covered it really well.
All right, hold on. I don't know why these won't let me see this. I had this pulled up earlier. Yep. He does seem, in my opinion, of the people that they looked into, unless there's somebody they don't even know. You know what I mean? That could be. That could be. They did run, just to give everybody another look at this area, what it looks like nowadays. They ran a drone over the top of the scene where all this went down. Agreed, Bonnie. I do too. I really do. Hang on. So this is what Lake Bodom looks like today. And there have been other crimes that have happened around this area since then. Not anywhere near as brutal as this, but quite a few. But it's so crazy because it is such a beautiful place to go, and I would love to be, to go someplace like this. But knowing, not really. This is the area that this all took place in, is right here. It's a large, large area, as you can see, and Lake Bodom is monstrous. So, just giving you guys a quick look to this was the area here where the tent and everything had been. What it looks like nowadays, after the fact, 65 years, it's a long time, you guys, to have nothing. And I almost wonder if the Stockton arrest was because they didn't have any answers to this. You know what I'm saying? Did they need to? All right. Back to where I was at with these other. I had a whole bunch of photographs, but that's pretty much it for that case. Anybody have any questions at all? That's another weird thing too, to think about it too, that it was a half a mile hike each direction to hide Gustafson's shoes or the missing murder weapons or the other stuff that disappeared. Yeah, I know, I do too, with the old style pictures. It's not giving me what I had earlier. I guess they did make a movie called Bodom in Finland. It wasn't here. There we go. This will give you a few of the photographs. They all recall seeing the tall blonde man walking away from the collapsed tent in the campsite. And it wasn't until 11, like I said, that the jogger found the bodies, alerted police. That was the tent itself, you guys. I'm sure you've seen it already. I've seen it, and you can see the slash marks. It's just hard to believe that somebody did this from the outside in. course, there's the other, again, trigger warning for those of you that don't handle that stuff very well. This is the Nazi guy that lived pretty close to the campsite there. The drawing, and it's weird because the sketch that was made, look at the sketch. To me, those two match quite a bit. The forehead, that big forehead with the lines, you know what I mean? The nose, the eyes, the darkness around the eyes, they match up pretty good, in my opinion. It's another reason why I was looking at the sketch like that's pretty close, you know? And sketch artists weren't as great back then, obviously. These look like my granddaughter drew them, but saying it is what it is. And that was based on a little, like a young guy, a young boy gave that description of who we saw walking away, so on and so forth. I don't know. And then there he is again. The dude just got a look to him, you know. He doesn't look nice. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
There's the shoes. For anybody that wondered. Let's see here. Make sure that I got it all. Yep, that was it. And none of those were matches to any of the suspects. Nope. That was another weird thing. Good question too. Thank you, SRB. I don't know. It's crazy. It is crazy. Oh yeah, there's a lot of blood drops on the shoes. But it was all the victims. Nothing came back to any of the suspects at all.
Weird.
Yeah, you sound so enthused right now. Weird.
I'm thinking.
Sure. Yeah. Whoa. I do too. I don't know if it's gonna be. Let me see. During Scream Fest 2016, young actress by the name of Mimosa Willamo won our award for Best Actress for her performance in the Finnish film like Bodom, Simply Bodom, the third feature for talented director Taneli Mustonen. After seeing so many films such a short succession, it is sometimes difficult for a film to stand out. Okay, so is it? I don't know if the film is available here to watch, and if we would be able to watch it in English, that would be good. But I would love to watch the movie if it's out there. The film follows 4 teens, 2 girls, 2 boys, as they travel to the notorious camping spot by the lake with the intent to. Oh, okay. This is not based on the actual crime. It's based on after the fact. So, with the intent to reconstruct the infamous murders that took place in the lake 50 years previously, the group hoped that by reliving the murders minute by minute, they will uncover previously undetected evidence. But the lake's sinister past may be repeating itself for real. Aside from being a sleek and atmospheric film, the legend that inspired it felt fresh and intriguing, although it is apparently a very well-known case in Finland and appealed to my morbid curiosity. The perplexing development of this half-century-old case is enough to spark even the most jaded of true crime fans' interest.
Bye, Bonnie. Take care, sweetheart.
Bye, Miss Bonnie. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I'm gonna look into it and see if I can find it.
Still sounds interesting, like SRB said.
Yeah, it definitely does. It was definitely an interesting case when I started reading, because I read this from like a Wikipedia article I found, and then I went looking for it. So that's how we got into it today. I still can't get past the so the sketch was, I don't know if anybody knew that either. That's interesting fact. The sketch was done by somebody that was under hypnosis. it's uncanny how much it looks like him. You know what I'm saying? It really does.
Yeah, the one in the top right, it looks like they're trying to draw that hair
Yeah.
hump.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
I don't know what the hairstyle is. Some kind
Yeah.
of a redacted pompadour or something. Who knows? But yeah, that's what I'm saying too. If it was done under hypnosis, that would definitely be quite interesting. Wilhelm Gustafsson later corroborated about the killer while under hypnosis. See? That's crazy. I don't think it was Gustafsson either. Nils Wilhelm Gunderson. Gustafsson, they have the name wrong. The witness, who had only come forward a year prior for a documentary interview, claimed that the two teen boys had entered her tent and that Gustafsson had been behaving aggressively. The defense claimed that Gustafsson had no motive for the crimes and that the injuries he sustained were impossible to inflict upon himself. I agree with that. After being initially convicted, Gustafsson only served 1 year of his life sentence. After a successful appeal granted him his freedom, of course. Despite his acquittal, he too is still seen by guilty by many. During his trial, when he was asked by a reporter how he knew he was innocent if he couldn't remember anything, he simply replied, "I'm innocent. That's that." Wow. That is wild, guys. It's a crazy case. But anyway.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I couldn't. That's what told me that took me away from him, is saying that he inflicted his own injuries, and then to find out that he had a broken jaw and his cheekbones were all caved in. No, there's no way. I just can't. I can't. I've seen people hurt themselves before, but our mind and our bodies only allow us to do so much to ourselves,
right?
Because the pain that we know that's coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's what we talked about with and this case keeps coming up, but Ellen Greenberg.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, Ellen Greenberg's case is that's a great example of not being able to inflict that type of pain on yourself, along with Deborah Collier. Okay. Yeah. Deborah Collier set herself on fire, supposedly. No, folks.
No.
There's no way. I just don't believe that. People that are taking their own lives, for instance, are in pain to begin with, emotional pain, emotional pain may not feel like physical pain, but it's worse in some ways. So somebody that's in pain like that already is not going to purposely inflict more pain on themselves to an extreme like that, in my opinion. That's, a psychological aspect to it.
Yeah.
I've never believed that. So yeah, Ellen definitely did not do that to herself. And I really struggle with Debbie's case too. So I don't know. Wait, let's go. Shutter May. Oh, I guess the movie can be found on that Shutter channel. If you guys have the Shutter channel.
I doubt I do.
I'm going to look for it because I do. Not right now, but I will look for it. If I find it, I'll let you guys know. If I can find it, maybe we can watch it in Discord. If it allows for that. Oh, absolutely. Emotions definitely cause physical pain. Eddie says maybe 44 years after the fact, an overzealous prosecutor trying to make a name for himself or herself in an attempt to solve the most. Yep. Thank you. Very much so. In turn, it cost them more money than anything because they had to pay all the money the state did to do that to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then when he was acquitted, they had to pay him $44,900 for his pain and suffering. So you screwed up in that aspect, state. Sorry. Or prosecution. I think if you do, it's a special. It's an extra channel called Shutter. It's all horror movies and stuff. So I only have it because of my Fire Stick thing. Hmm. All right. So let's see here. Mm-mm.
How is it you can jailbreak a Fire Stick, but you can't operate a computer? Explain this to me.
I don't know how to explain that to you.
Suspicious.
I think, well, I can operate a computer. I just don't know how to. There's certain things that I don't. The newer stuff, I'm not very good with. The old, if it was an old style computer, sure, I had no problem with that. And I've done the Fire Stick thing so many times. It's just part of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen there's a video out where somebody's trying to claim that Brian Koberger is taunting everyone with the whole American Psycho
Oh, good Lord.
thing going on that Jude Law did in that movie.
No.
And that he looks like Jude Law in American Psycho. He looks like Anthony Perkins in the movie Psycho. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you guys, anything you can reach for. By the way, the prosecution that is going after Linguini Manicotti is seeking the death penalty on that case. In case anybody didn't know that. Just checking my news updates here real quick. Which isn't really super new, but there's still people out there trying to turn Gene Hackman and his wife's death into some kind of a conspiracy thing.
Leave them people alone.
That's what I said. It's so insane. Let me see here. I had another little thing I was going to show you guys towards the end of this.
Is that some more thunder?
It's the thunder. Lots and lots of thunder. And the rain started again. Oh, hold on. That's what it was. I wanted to give an update in another cold case we've covered pretty deep. I think we may have talked about it slightly. Stephen Baldwin. Do you remember that?
Sounds familiar.
The new suspect in the Maura Murray case.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, let me give you guys a quick run over on this real fast. This is still a cold case, and I've really kind of obsessed with this case too. Let me show you something real quick here. This is like 15 minutes tops. All right.
February 9th, 2004. A college student crashes her car on a dark road in New Hampshire. In the 7 minutes between witnesses calling police and a first officer arriving on the scene, Maura Murray vanishes into thin air. For 20 years, this case has haunted investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike. But now a single fingerprint might change everything. As first reported by investigative journalist James Renner, this breakthrough could finally crack one of America's most baffling cold cases. Hey everyone, welcome to Bad Things. In today's episode, we're diving deep into a breaking development in the Maura Murray case. We'll examine newly revealed evidence linking a former West Point cadet to her disappearance, explore his disturbing criminal history, and uncover the connections that make him the New Hampshire State Police's #1 suspect. What we're about to discuss could finally help solve one of America's most baffling disappearances. A breakthrough has emerged in the Maura Murray investigation, and it's one that could finally help solve this 20-year mystery. A fingerprint found inside Maura's Saturn has been matched to former West Point cadet Stephen Baldwin. But here's where things get interesting. This discovery came as Baldwin was being sentenced to 15.5 years in prison for an entirely different set of crimes in Ohio. The connection was made when Baldwin's prints were entered into AFIS, the National Fingerprint Database. The New Hampshire Cold Case Unit got the hit they'd been waiting for. This wasn't just any match. This was physical evidence linking someone from Maura's past directly to her car. For investigators who've worked this case for 2 decades, this was the kind of breakthrough they'd been hoping for. Detective Charles West of the New Hampshire State Police identified Baldwin as his #1 suspect. In fact, West was so convinced of Baldwin's potential involvement that he was making plans to interview him in Ohio when he suddenly left the cold case unit. The significance of this can't be overstated. We have a lead investigator who believed so strongly in this connection that he was ready to cross state lines to pursue it. What makes this even more compelling is the timing. The fingerprint match didn't just give investigators a new suspect. It gave them a suspect whose recent criminal history reveals a disturbing pattern of behavior. We're talking about someone who's been proven to be a master manipulator, someone who's shown a repeated pattern of deception and fraud. The FBI has already gotten involved, conducting interviews and gathering evidence. This isn't just another lead or another theory. This is physical evidence connecting someone from Maura's past directly to her vehicle, someone who knew her personally, someone who had a relationship with her at West Point, someone who left West Point within days of when Maura withdrew. But to understand why this breakthrough is so significant, we need to look at who Stephen Baldwin really is and his disturbing connection to Maura Murray. Who is Stephen Baldwin? To understand why this fingerprint is so significant, we need to look at who Stephen Baldwin really is. And what investigators have discovered about his past paints a disturbing picture of manipulation, deception, and calculated behavior. Let's start with his connection to Maura. Back at West Point, Baldwin wasn't just another cadet. He was someone deeply involved in Maura's life. They dated for a period before she met Bill Roche, and their relationship was serious enough that Baldwin got into trouble for having Maura in his room, breaking West Point's strict rules about male and female cadets sharing space. But Baldwin's connection went beyond just dating. He served as Maura's representative during her judicial review board hearing at West Point. He was there when she faced discipline after being found passed out on the lawn from alcohol poisoning. According to Baldwin, her friends had abandoned her there to avoid getting in trouble themselves. Here's where things get interesting. When Maura withdrew from West Point, Baldwin left within a week of her departure. This timing raised red flags for investigators, especially given what we now know about his behavior patterns. Fast forward to 2012, when Baldwin's true nature began to emerge. He was appointed as a humane agent for Union County, Ohio, a rural area outside Columbus. He created what appeared to be a legitimate non-profit called the Animal Cruelty Task Force, complete with official badges and legal authority. He positioned himself as someone dedicated to helping troubled animals, particularly dogs with behavioral issues that were at risk of being put down. But beneath this facade of legitimacy lay something much darker. Baldwin was running an elaborate scheme. He would take in these troubled dogs, promise to rehabilitate them, and collect money from desperate owners. But instead of helping these animals, he would euthanize them when their funding ran out, all while telling the owners their pets were doing well and had been adopted. During his recent sentencing, victim after victim described Baldwin as a master manipulator and a compulsive liar. One victim stated, "He conned every human into believing him." Another described him as someone who could make other people believe whatever he wanted them to believe. A veterinarian who worked with him testified that he is someone who has no empathy, no ability to care for others. When investigators finally caught up with him, they discovered he had needlessly euthanized at least 18 dogs in Ohio, possibly as many as 100 cats, and had fled to California, where he started the same scheme again. This pattern of deception, manipulation, and ability to maintain elaborate lies while presenting a trustworthy facade is exactly what makes investigators take his potential connection to Mora's case so seriously. The deeper connection. But here's where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. Years ago, during the initial investigation, there were rumors circulating on message boards about someone named Stefanos or Stephaness. These rumors, which seemed baseless at the time, centered around a UMass party that Mora attended the weekend before she disappeared. We know from phone records that Mora's boyfriend, Bill Roche, accessed her voicemail after she vanished. What he discovered was disturbing. Mora had apparently hooked up with someone at that UMass party. And now, 20 years later, these old rumors about Stefan take on new significance. When confronted by investigators, Baldwin's response was calculated. He sent an email to the FBI that, on the surface, appears helpful. But look closer and you'll see classic manipulation tactics at work. He deflects attention to other potential suspects, including what he calls a fifth-year senior who allegedly stalked Mora at West Point. He portrays himself as cooperative, while simultaneously distancing himself from any involvement. The email is particularly interesting because of how Baldwin frames himself as someone who cared for Mora and was supposedly concerned about her well-being. He even suggests investigating her boyfriend's friend group, claiming they once left her passed out drunk on a lawn. But remember, this is coming from someone who has demonstrated a pattern of masterful manipulation. The veterinarian who worked with Baldwin in Ohio put it best when she testified, "He is someone who has no empathy, no ability to care for others." Another victim stated, "He could make other people believe whatever he wanted them to believe." This is exactly what makes investigators so concerned about his potential connection to Mora's case. His ability to appear.
What I want to know, I would love for this to be true, okay? That he did whatever he did to be able to get an answer to this. If this is the case, what did he do with her and where is she? Do you know what I mean? And how did he follow her down there? Was he with her in the car? Maybe. But then where did he go? I think he was too, SRB. I think he's the one that was stalking her. And it makes me wonder about some of those other witnessed accounts to her case as to what was seen that night and what wasn't. I almost wonder. I don't know. I don't know. It's been so damn long and with no answers that it would make some sense. It really definitely would make some sense.
Genuine while hiding darker truths. But perhaps most troubling is the timing of it all. Baldwin left West Point within days of Mora's withdrawal, and now his fingerprint shows up in her car, despite his claim that he never saw her after West Point and has never been further north than Connecticut. The investigation now. The discovery of Baldwin's fingerprint has completely shifted the focus of the
I doubt it,
investigation.
Alicia.
But what makes this lead different from all the others that have come and gone over the past 2 decades? First, we have physical evidence, something that's been notably absent in this case. While Baldwin claims his print was on a CD from Trading Music at West Point, investigators are skeptical. The location and condition of the print suggest more recent contact with the vehicle. And remember, this is coming from someone who insists he's never been further north than Connecticut. Second, we have a suspect whose behavioral patterns match aspects of the case that have always puzzled investigators. The calculated nature of Maura's disappearance, the emails to professors, the packed car, the apparent plan, all suggest someone who knew how to think steps ahead. Baldwin's criminal history shows exactly that kind of methodical planning. The FBI's involvement is particularly telling. They've conducted multiple interviews with Baldwin, and sources close to the investigation say they're especially interested in his whereabouts during February 2004. His phone records from that time period are being carefully scrutinized, along with any potential connections to the UMass area. What's particularly interesting is how Baldwin's story has evolved. In his initial email to investigators, he claimed he never looked into Maura's case too much because of that little twinge of disappointment in how the relationship ended. But cell phone records show he was actively following the case online, even creating multiple accounts on discussion forums about Maura's disappearance. The New Hampshire State Police are now reviewing old evidence with fresh eyes. They're particularly interested in any surveillance footage from the days leading up to Maura's disappearance, hoping to spot Baldwin's vehicle in the area. They're also re-interviewing witnesses who might have seen someone matching his description. Most importantly, they're looking at this case through the lens of what we now know about Baldwin's methods, his ability to maintain elaborate deceptions, his skill at manipulation, and his pattern of appearing helpful while actively working to mislead. Where do we go from here? As this investigation continues to unfold, there are several crucial aspects that investigators and the public need to consider. First, there's the matter of Baldwin's current situation. He's now serving a 15-and-a-half-year sentence in Ohio, which actually works in investigators' favor. They know exactly where he is, and more importantly, they have time to build their case. People serving long sentences often become more willing to talk, especially as the reality of their situation sets in. Second, there's the matter of potential witnesses who might now feel safe to come forward. With Baldwin behind bars, people who may have been afraid to speak up before might finally share what they know. This is particularly relevant for anyone who was at UMass during that time period, or anyone who might have information about Baldwin's movements in early 2004. The case has also caught the attention of behavioral analysts at the FBI. They're particularly interested in the parallels between Baldwin's documented criminal behavior and certain aspects of Maura's disappearance. The methodical planning, the elaborate deception, the ability to maintain false narratives. These are all hallmarks of Baldwin's later crimes that might have been present even in 2004. However, we must acknowledge something important. While this lead seems promising, we've seen seemingly solid leads fade away before. Baldwin's fingerprints could have an innocent explanation, just as he claims. His history of manipulation and deception doesn't automatically connect him to Maura's disappearance. Like every lead in this case, we have to approach it with both hope and skepticism. But for Maura's family, this development has given them something they haven't had in years. Hope. Real hope based on physical evidence, not just theories or speculation. For the first time in 20 years, they have a direct connection between their daughter's disappearance and someone who knew her personally. The fingerprint in Maura's car might just be the beginning, or it might be another dead end. As investigators continue to dig deeper into Baldwin's past, as more witnesses come forward, and as the FBI continues its investigation, we might finally be getting closer to answering the question that has haunted us for 2 decades. What really happened to Maura Murray on that cold February night in 2004?
There it is. For those of you that didn't see it before, yeah, I mean, you guys know how deeply I followed that case. I don't know. There was a bunch of theories that were put out on this. Let me see something here. Goes along with what we just watched. The theories that were put out, and I follow along with them too. This new lead, I guess you could call it per se, on this guy is the one that I'm very most likely happier with because it makes more sense than anything I've seen. But I'll show you some of those others real quick here. Hold on. Let me know if you can hear this okay.
Just 5 days old. Bill Jensen, a true crime writer and journalist, explained why the 2004 case is still fascinating 20 years on. On the internet, Maura's disappearance is the perfect obsession, a puzzle of clues that offers a tantalizing illusion. If the right armchair detective connects the right dots, maybe the unsolvable can be solved. And so every day the case attracts new recruits, analyzing and dissecting and reconstructing the details of her story with a Warren Commission-like fervor. Welcome to Bad Things, and our deep dive into the disappearance of Maura Murray. Join us as we and qualified for the United States by the end of January 2002. However, on January...
This is really just to show, because we've already done a lot of this, but this is really just to show the theories that they have put out recent. Well, not some are recent, some are from older times, but
2nd, 2002, Maura formally transferred from West Point, most likely to escape expulsion, which would have been on her permanent record. Transferring to the University of Massachusetts should have been a fresh start for Maura, but according to a Freedom of Information Act request for files pertaining to interviews with those who knew her, Maura seemed to be in a downward spiral. According to the documents, none of Maura's nursing student peers claimed to have a close connection with her, and most of her dorm mates told police they barely knew her enough to say hello. Her classmates viewed her as withdrawn, reserved, and quiet, and she struggled to fit in on campus. The documents also indicated that Maura was suffering from bulimia, something her family had been aware of for some time. The files just confirm everything that we already knew. It confirms that Maura was struggling, she had an eating disorder, and she was making poor decisions, and we knew that, Julie Murray would say. Maura's roommate at West Point, Megan Sawyer, corroborated this when speaking to James Renner, when she said, "You could tell there were some inner demons. She seemed sad. She had issues with bulimia. If she wanted to make up another life, she could do it. If she wanted to disappear, she..."
I don't know why they have to keep throwing her that into this. It has nothing to do with her disappearance. I think that's just ignorant that they need to put that in there.
She could. I believe she's alive. It's just a feeling I've always had. Maura was also having relationship issues with her long-distance boyfriend, Bill Rush. Maura's relationship with alcohol was routinely looked into by investigators during the early stages of the investigation, with some students who knew her telling detectives that she drank no more than the average college student, while others claimed she could turn into a different person when she drank and was frequently seen alone on campus carrying groceries and alcohol to her room. With all these personal problems starting to mount up, Maura would once again run afoul of the law. In November 2003, Maura was caught using stolen credit card details. Maura used discarded receipts to get credit card information and ordered pizza with them. She escaped punishment for this serious charge by getting a literal slap on the wrist of 3 months probation. By February 2004, Maura's life began unraveling within a matter of days. Maura had started working as an on-campus security officer at her university to make a few extra dollars while at university. On Thursday, February 5th at 10:20 p.m., Maura spoke on the phone with her sister Kathleen. In 2017, Kathleen said they talked about Kathleen's fiancé on that call. Kathleen, a recovering alcoholic, had been released from a treatment facility that evening, and on the way home, her fiancé took her straight to a liquor store, resulting in her having an emotional breakdown and relapse. 10 minutes later at 10:30 p.m., Maura began crying while on shift. When her supervisor asked whether something was wrong, Maura just shook her head. He then asked whether there had been a family emergency, to which Maura replied, "No, nothing to do with me." The supervisor inquired further, asking what the call was about. She started crying and muttering words under her breath that I could not understand, the supervisor said. I asked her again, telling her I was worried about her, and she said, "No reason to leave. It's my sister, not me." I asked her if something happened to her sister, and she responded, "It's my sister's problem, not mine," and started shaking visibly while crying silently. The supervisor was so concerned about Maura's state of mind that he tried repeatedly to get her to visit a counselor immediately, but she refused. Maura decided to go home early from work, and the supervisor walked her to her front door. The supervisor characterized Maura as being in obvious distress and being very depressed. A family member later informed authorities that Kathleen's addiction had previously caused severe depression for Maura in the past. 2 days after her conversation with Kathleen, Maura's father, Fred, drove to Amherst to go car shopping with her. Fred met Maura and one of her friends for dinner at a brewery, followed by a visit to a liquor store. Fred returned to his hotel and lent Maura his vehicle for the evening so she could go back to her dorm for a party. She arrived at the party at approximately 10:30 p.m. and left at about 2:30 a.m. on Sunday the 8th. At 3:30.
Okay, I'm gonna skip forward to the theories because we know the story. Unless you guys want me to play the whole thing. I just wanted to. Do you want me to play the whole thing or just the theories that I pulled it up for? If that, the whole thing put one, the theories put two, guys, it'd be easier, I guess. Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Okay, cool. We'll go with there.
What are some of those theories, and do they have any substance behind them? Number 1. Her boyfriend, Bill Roche, is responsible for her disappearance. When a woman is murdered or disappears, it is almost a stereotype that her partner, boyfriend, love interest, or husband is to blame. Bill Roche, Maura's boyfriend, is still to this day in the public eye regarding her unexplained disappearance. Although cleared by law enforcement, one true crime author believes Roche should be looked at more closely. For years, James Renner, the author of True Crime Addict, How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray, believed that Maura tried to leave the country and start a new life in Canada or Mexico. At the end of his book, Renner alleged that Maura's long-term boyfriend, Bill Roche, had been abusive towards her. He believed that when Maura discovered she was pregnant with Bill's or another man's baby, she hatched a plan to run away to start a new life. But who was this other man? Maura was apparently involved with Hussein Baghdadi, an assistant track coach at the University of Massachusetts, while still being in a long-distance relationship with Bill Roche. Renner posted on Reddit saying, "Lately I keep going back to my conversation with Hussein Baghdadi, one of the track coaches at UMass when Maura was running. He was very candid and admitted the affair about seeing Maura when she was on a break from Bill and for a little while when they were together. Hoss said Maura talked about running away, starting a new life, possibly in Mexico. To me, this is very important. It means he's either telling the truth, and that's exactly what she did, or he's lying. I tend to believe him for many reasons, the least of which is he didn't have a lot to gain by admitting the relationship, and because he has no history of ill will. If she didn't disappear on her own accord, we also have to believe that she told nobody about her drive into New Hampshire. Otherwise, they would have come forward after the disappearance and said, yeah, she was just driving up to the North Country to clear her head. I will never believe a young woman like Maura would leave without telling anyone, without leaving a note or an email for someone who might be concerned for her whereabouts. It's much more likely she did tell someone, her friends, and the only reason they would have to not share that contact is to protect her to this day. But why would Maura be afraid of Bill Roche? For some, this question was answered in 2019. Roche, now a US Army major, was charged on one count of felony third-degree sexual abuse for an alleged after-hours attack on a subordinate female employee in a downtown DC office building. Kate Patterson called the police the day after Roche attempted to force himself on her in the unoccupied office of Ray Group International, where they both worked in 2011. Patterson was 22 at the time, working her first job out of college, and Roche was her superior. The female Metropolitan Police Department officer's first response when she tried to report it was, according to Patterson, "Why didn't you report this last night?" It wasn't until 2017 that Patterson returned to the police, motivated by a call from a man looking into a missing person case from 2004 in New Hampshire. You guessed it, the Maura Murray case. The caller was James Renner. Roche was stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma on the night Murray vanished, and he has categorically denied any involvement in her disappearance. He has said on Twitter that he was granted leave to search for Murray after he found out she had gone missing. However, Renner has maintained his own unsubstantiated theory that Roche was involved in Maura's disappearance, which he discussed on his blog, which has since been removed due to severe trolling, according to Renner. Renner's theory proposes that Maura could have made it from the crash site to another location safely, where Bill connects with her by phone. Maura agrees to meet him, and he is responsible for her disappearance. Renner claims that other women who had read the blog and seen him talk about the case on a podcast contacted him to describe Roche's unpredictable and often violent conduct. 3 people who Patterson told about the attack soon after it happened have confirmed her account to a news outlet. 2 of those individuals, who were Patterson's colleagues at the time, characterized Roche's behavior toward women in the workplace, particularly toward Patterson, as demeaning and condescending. According to Patterson, Roche once told her that wearing jeans in the workplace was unprofessional and that she should wear skirts or dresses instead. In another Reddit post, Renner states, 4 other women have come forward with allegations of sexual harassment and abuse, but these incidents may be beyond the statute of limitation. One woman claims that in the fall of 2004, he choked her and said, "I'm going to kill you like I killed Maura Murray." Violence against other women does not prove that Roche had anything to do with his girlfriend's disappearance, but there are some unanswered questions and some strange behavior that will always keep him in the wings as a suspect. In a lengthy Reddit post called Things About Bill Roche, an unnamed user listed these questions and the strange behavior exhibited by Roche. The most pertinent being, when asked what flight he took to initially go out east when Maura went missing, the flight he gave did not exist. When confronted with that info, he suggested he perhaps had a layover that he cannot for the life of him remember. To this day, he refuses to share his flight plan. Bill Roche has never seen Maura's family since her disappearance. Bill's phone activity in the days leading up to Maura's disappearance showed days of way too many calls for someone on an army base, more like someone driving and bored for 2 days. Bill cheated on Maura with his ex-wife. Bill liked this woman so much he left the exact same base he was on when he was with Maura without permission from the military. He admits this to go see her in England. And people think he wouldn't be able to make it to Massachusetts undetected. Number 2. Maura's family believes she was abducted and killed. According to widespread belief by web sleuths and the Murray family, Maura was abducted by either an opportunistic predator or a serial killer. Fred Murray believes his daughter was abducted by a local person, or a local dirtbag as he has called people living in the area, who knows the region, where to go, and how to enter and exit without being noticed. Larry Moulton came forward in late 2004 with a knife that he thinks was used in Maura's murder. It belonged to his brother Claude, who lived approximately a mile away from the accident scene in an A-frame home. Claude had an extensive criminal record and was rumored to date girls much younger than him. By 2006, Claude had abandoned the house, and the new owners had hired private detectives to investigate. Cadaver dogs were brought in and immediately picked up the scent of a decomposing body. Additionally, carpet samples from the apartment were collected for examination. Unfortunately, the sample...
I don't remember. I don't think it was. I don't think the phone was found. I can't remember 100%. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll have to double check my notes too, but I don't believe.
Were lost due to a lack of clarity in the chain of custody. The New Hampshire State Police were handed Moulton's knife, but the findings were never made public. In 2016, members of the podcast Missing Maura Murray returned to the A-frame home to see if they could find any evidence of Larry Moulton's accusations against his brother Claude. They saw what seemed to be blood streaks in a cabinet. A molecular geneticist examined the wood particles and discovered these streaks were human blood. Unfortunately, the samples were too degraded to establish whether the blood was Maura's. Another scenario that fits in with the belief that Maura was abducted is the opportunistic serial killer theory. This theory has two distinct sub-theories. The first one being is that a known serial killer was responsible for Maura's disappearance. Israel Keyes was an American serial killer, bank robber, burglar, arsonist, kidnapper, rapist, and necrophile who killed at least 3 people in the United States between June 2011 and February 2012. The FBI suspected Keyes of killing at least 11 people based on a note, drawings of skulls and Baphomet, and the word Corozal on the cell wall, all scrawled in Keyes' blood. But what possible ties might exist between Maura and Israel Keyes? The hypothesis is that after Murray was involved in her vehicle accident in 2004, Keyes abducted and killed her because he was in the area and came across her as a victim of opportunity. As a serial killer, Keyes chose victims who happened to cross his path rather than having a type. He often lurked in parks, cemeteries, and campgrounds, ready to accost people. Not as much to select from, in the sense of speaking. He admitted to law enforcement about his tactics, but there are also no witnesses. Basically, there's no one else around. According to some internet sleuths, there are 3 plausible connections between Keyes and Maura. Number 1, Maura passed through Keyes' hunting grounds. Maura's trips across New Hampshire placed her in an ideal position to be happened upon by Keyes, who had no qualms about traveling vast distances in search of victims. Keyes told police he once rented a car and drove over 900 miles to the rural town of Essex, Vermont, where he shot Bill Currier, 50, and assaulted and strangled his wife, Lorraine, 55. Number 2, Israel was traveling the week Maura went missing. On the day Maura disappeared, Keyes was in Utah, where he had rented a silver Volkswagen Jetta that, according to the rental agreement, was not allowed to leave the state. We know he couldn't have used this rental car to get to New Hampshire, where Maura was last seen, since he only clocked up over 500 kilometers between February 6th and February 13th. Many believers in the serial killer theory think Keyes drove to and from a small airport before boarding an aircraft to the East Coast, allowing him enough time to return to Utah when Maura went missing. Number 3. In October 2004, Keyes was rumored to be in New Hampshire. The fact that the FBI put Keyes in Manchester, New Hampshire from October 6th to 16th, 2004, barely 8 months after Murray's disappearance, is perhaps the most fascinating and little-known detail linking him to the disappearance. Was Keyes paying a second visit to a murder scene? The Israel Keyes connection to Maura's disappearance is a stretch, but the second sub-theory involves an epidemic of serial murder that until recently wasn't even on the public's radar. According to the FBI's Highway Serial Killings Initiative, long-haul truck drivers are suspected of being responsible for at least 850 murders in the United States in the past few decades. The FBI project helps correlate homicides that seem unrelated but follow a pattern of female victims, many of whom are engaged in prostitution or sex trafficking being picked up at truck stops, sexually abused, and then slain, with their remains discarded in various areas. The FBI is confident the 850 killings are the work of serial killers. Frank Filiuzzi, a former FBI assistant director for...
I don't believe Keys is involved in this at all. He's involved in a lot, but not, I don't think it's this one at all. I just never thought that.
Counterintelligence said. In fact, there are already 25 long-haul truckers who are in prison for multiple homicides. He went on to explain that 200 homicides are still unsolved, with 450 people being investigated for these murders. Was Mora picked up by one of these long-haul serial killers? This theory, just like the Israel Keys theory, is a bit of a stretch. Surely, with witnesses seeing her just before she disappeared, they would have noticed a large long-haul truck on a wild Amanusik road that night. So what do we think happened to Mora on the night she disappeared? To get a clear picture of the most likely explanation of what happened to Mora, we must look at her state of mind, what was happening in her life at the time, and most importantly, logic. Given that it is unknown if a crime took place in this case, it can be helpful to conduct a
Thank you, James.
psychological
Appreciate that very
profile
much.
to better understand the mindset and lifestyle of Mora, to conceptualize the why and how of her disappearance. Regardless of what happened to Mora, we can all agree that she showed signs of extreme stress before her disappearance. She was distraught, overwhelmed, covert, anxious, and impulsive, and not telling anyone her actual destination or why she was leaving was a sign of this. Mora showed some warning signs of wanting to run away, harm herself, or end her life. Some of these signs include: she was so secretive about her plans that no one to date knows where she was headed or why. She returned borrowed clothes to a fellow student right before leaving the university, knowing she wasn't returning. She packed up all her belongings in her dorm room. She left behind a printed email from a conversation with Rosh that showed problems in their relationship. Mora was headed toward a personal, meaningful destination, the White Mountains, which may have held emotional comfort for her. She also tried to book a room at a familiar family vacation site that may have held positive or calming memories for her. Mora was exhibiting many of the symptoms of hypomania and was at an age where it is normal for women to have their first symptomatic breakthroughs in bipolar disorder. Hypomania is a condition in which you experience excessively high and dramatic variations in your mood or emotions, energy level or activity level. Her impulsivity and recklessness, which are indicators of hypomania, were shown by credit card fraud, shoplifting, car accidents, lying, excessive drinking, mood swings, and cognitive impairments. There are also several indications that Mora comes from a family steeped in alcoholic codependent behaviors. Kathleen, her elder sister, has a confessed long history of alcoholism that has resulted in multiple trips to treatment facilities. This codependency is evident in Mora's state of mind after the call from her sister, with her supervisor characterizing her as being in obvious distress, almost catatonic, and being very depressed. Just looking at a simple timeline of events in her life before her disappearance shows where her stress came from. Credit card fraud, shoplifting, relationship problems, 2 car crashes in 2 days, her sister's alcohol dependency problems, and suspected mental difficulties is a lot for any 21-year-old woman to deal with. Now that we have outlined the why, let us look at how it most likely happened. Let's pick up the story from just after Mora left the Hadley police station after picking up the accident report forms at 4 p.m. When Faith heard the accident on her road, 3.5 hours had passed since Mora's last sighting at the police station. We think it's safe to say that in these 3+ hours, Mora had been drinking while driving. When comparing what alcohol she bought at Liquor 44, a bottle of Kahlua, a bottle of vodka, a nip of Bailey's and a 12-pack of Smirnoff Ice, to what was found in her car, an empty Smirnoff Ice bottle, a damaged box of red wine, and a Diet Coke bottle reportedly filled with red wine, it's easy to surmise that she had been binge drinking. Maura, under the influence and most likely in an emotional state, took a hairpin bend in slippery conditions and plowed her car into a tree, pushing the car's radiator into the fan, rendering it inoperable. This was Maura's second accident in 2 days, both while intoxicated. Knowing full well that any interaction with law enforcement would lead to a breathalyzer and arrest, Maura refused help when Butch Atwood offered to call the police. Once Atwood had left her by the disabled car, Maura's mind began racing. 2 accidents in 2 days. I've been drinking. I'm on a probation to stay out of trouble, and now I can't get away from it all, she must have been thinking. This is a widely held belief for many people following the case and theories of what happened to Maura.
I
One
agree, yes,
anonymous
sir.
Redditor posted, also, it has to be accounted for that she was clearly in mental distress leading up to this trip, not necessarily suicide, but certainly in a condition that could easily lead her to make irrational and impulsive decisions, like, say, running off into the woods to avoid the cops after getting in a drunk driving accident. Clearly, she was not operating rationally, and too many people investigating this case lose sight of this fact. So what did Maura do? She did what she did best: run. But where to? James Renner, the author we mentioned earlier, thinks he may have an idea. 31 miles from where she had her accident, the University of Massachusetts maintains and runs a property called the Outing Club. The Outing Club was well known to Maura, her coach and allegedly lover, Hussein Baghdadi. The Outing Club was used for University of Massachusetts sports teams to train or team build. Maura, although in a diminished mental state, thought she was close to the Outing Club and could maybe seek refuge there until everything blew over. Maura took off on foot towards what she thought would be an easy walk to the Outing Club. This view may be reinforced by a sighting that could have been her, but was only reported 3 months after her disappearance. Between 8 and 8:30 p.m., a contractor heading home from Franconia saw a young person walking rapidly eastward on Route 112, roughly 4 to 5 miles east of where Murray's car was recovered. He observed that the individual wore jeans, a dark coat, and a light-colored hood. He did not report this sighting to authorities right away, owing to his misunderstanding of dates, learning 3 months later while examining his work records that he had seen the young person the same night Maura vanished. What Maura didn't count on was how dangerous it was being out in the frigid weather that night. No doubt the web sleuths would investigate the weather conditions that night, and ACDC on Reddit came up with the following. I decided to do some research on the weather the night Maura Murray disappeared. It was said that the night Maura disappeared wasn't cold, but the weather underground disagrees. Let me explain. First thing we know is that Maura was headed east on 112. Now, the night Maura disappeared, the temperatures fluctuated between 27 Fahrenheit to 23 Fahrenheit. When she had her accident, the temperature was between 27 Fahrenheit to 25 Fahrenheit. These temperatures are below freezing, and thus someone could suffer from hypothermia in these conditions. When you add the fact that the wind was blowing in a westerly direction, coupled with the fact Maura was traveling east and would have continued on foot, it's obvious that had Maura continued on foot heading east, she would have been facing below freezing temperatures and having the wind against her. Also, if Maura had been drinking, the blood vessels near her skin would have dilated, and thus she would have lost significant heat due to her intoxication. Based on the ATM videos, we can tell Maura was wearing a jacket. What we can't tell, however, is what she was wearing on her feet. If Maura was walking against the wind, there's a good chance she had blowing snow in her face, which would have brought down her body temperature and kept her from seeing very well. It's possible she could have ventured into the woods to avoid the wind and blowing snow, and then got lost. It's also entirely possible that she slipped and fell and hurt herself. If she was drinking, her motor skills would have been diminished. Let me know what you think. Maura was up against the wall and underestimated the treacherous weather conditions that night, and she most likely knew it. Hypothermia was kicking in, and Maura was in trouble. She needed shelter. ACDC expanded on what she might have done, realizing the predicament she was in by posting, Yes, in fact, I would say the most probable theory aside from the abduction theory is the death by misadventure. The problem with Maura's case is that there was too much misinformation on the internet and in news reports. Had people taken the time to check the actual weather patterns that night, it leads to a whole other outcome. If Maura did keep going on foot east on 112, she would have definitely have either looked for shelter within less than an hour, and if shelter wasn't available, she would have gone into the woods, probably near a valley or some enclosure where the ground is lower, to keep the cold blowing snow and air off of her. If she did this, it's entirely possible she kept drinking till she passed out and died from hypothermia. Possible locations she would have been seeking shelter include bridges, abandoned sheds, buildings, or the forest. Of course, I don't believe this to be the case, but it's entirely possible. Many times when someone suffers from hypothermia, their minds will play tricks on them, and they will actually remove items of clothing, thinking that they are warmer without the item of clothing. This is especially the case when someone's clothing has become wet. For example, if her feet got wet, which they most likely did if she walked, she would have removed her socks. If her pants were wet, she would have removed them, etc. It's a reflex that doesn't make sense, but by this time, the person would be in shock and their actions wouldn't make much sense, especially if she was also intoxicated. It's possible Maura met her end with a series of poor decisions on her end, unfortunately. AC/DC's undressing theory is called hypothermia undressing and is one of the strangest aspects of our video. Researcher is 100% sure this is what happened at Dyatlov Pass. This paradoxical behavior would have certainly led to Maura's death within an hour or so in the below freezing weather. If Maura died from overexposure, surely her body would have been found by now. The number of searches carried out to find Maura is staggering. New Hampshire State Police and New Hampshire Fish and Game conducted 5 searches in 2004. The New Hampshire League of Investigators conducted 3 wide-ranging searches, the first in 2006. Friends and family searched for the first few weeks after Maura's disappearance. A team involving Fred Murray, Rick Graves, and others searched every weekend for the first year. Boots on the ground, Veteran Organization has been conducting annual searches since 2017, but all of these searches have been in vain. Contrary to popular belief, searching for a corpse isn't as easy as seen in the movies. RNH213PDX hit the nail on the head when they posted on Reddit saying, "I encourage you to visit this area of the United States. I don't think people from afar can appreciate the density and all-consuming nature of these woods. It makes perfect sense to me that someone can enter the woods and never be seen again." Another anonymous poster concurred and gave an example of how easy it is to miss human remains during a search. Not finding her doesn't mean she is not in the woods. If you look at other cases who had experienced searchers with dogs and everything else, they have missed remains. I remember just a few years ago was a jogger who had went missing on a running trail, and they did search after search of the trail with dogs, and helis could not find him. Months went by before another jogger stumbled across human remains under a tree just off the trail. The dead jogger had probably been feeling unwell or tired and took refuge under the tree next to the trail. I do think Maura might be in the woods, not that far away from her.
I agree, James, and thank
Just
you
given
again,
how
my
close
friend.
other missing people
I
are
couldn't do this
eventually
without her.
found
That's a
from their
fact.
cars, etc. That said, she was pretty fit, so she may have gotten further than we give her credit for. In 2021, the Murray family got news that they had been hoping they would get for years. On September 14, 2021, the New Hampshire State Police revealed that bone fragments had been discovered by construction workers on Loon Mountain in Lincoln, New Hampshire, some 25 miles east of Maura's crash scene. Maura had visited the mountain before and was familiar with the area, according to her sister. The fragments were characterized as pretty small, and the identification of the remains...
No, they didn't find any clothing or anything within the wooded areas that they searched, or anything that they could lead to her, sadly. There was nothing. Like, she vanished, you know what I mean? Sad, very sad.
was likely to take at least 2 months. The situation is pretty remarkable. Lance Reinstierner, one of the hosts of the Missing Mora podcast, would say, "We have seen this happen in the past, these moments where something is found or a promising tip comes in, but it turns out to be fruitless. This, however, has a different feel to it." Julie Murray echoed this sentiment, saying, "We're still not sure how old the bones are or the gender, so it's still sort of up in the air, but this one feels different." Unfortunately, these sentiments were proven wrong when DNA test results came back. The bones did not belong to Mora. It's been 2 decades since Mora disappeared, but interest in her case doesn't seem to be waning. New theories, suspects, podcasts, and accusations ignite new interest to the case. Here at Bad Things, we think that the most logical explanation is the right one. To quote a Midwestern man on Reddit, "She panicked, ran into the woods, and died from the elements. Nothing more." Leave us a comment below.
If that was the case, they would have found her. That doesn't make sense. Okay. I thought about that too in the very beginning, but no. And I still have questions about law enforcement. Okay. The way that the police were acting that night was very strange. There is a theory I have about, I don't know if it was the chief. I think it was the police chief being under the influence of alcohol and driving his vehicle and possibly hitting her, and then they did something with her. That's another theory I've had on this too, because it was dark and there's no streetlights out that way, you know what I mean? And he was known to drink while on the job, things like that. There's people seeing his vehicle being turned around, and there was multiple vehicles out there. It was just weird how the police reaction to this was, and the response and things like that. I have a theory about that too. Think about that, guys. I mean, if it's not so far-fetched to think about law enforcement doing things like that, especially in small town areas where nobody's going to see things. You know, if you made a mistake as a law enforcement officer, hit somebody and killed them with your vehicle because of due to your insolence of being under the influence of alcohol while on duty, I don't think it's too far-fetched to try to hide the evidence to that story. I've always had that theory for a long time, because you guys know how deep I've been into this case. And that is a pretty strong theory of mine. Pretty strong theory. So, any thoughts, Mama Bear, before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us once again today. I may be back in here later. I don't, you know, that's up to the boss here. I don't know for sure, so I don't want to make promises that I may not be able to keep. But thank you all for joining us today for this. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Well, I hate using the word enjoyed. Got something out of the first story we looked over, and then, of course, with the updates with Mora. I hope that was good for you guys, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Once again, I appreciate you all very much. Thank you to the Blue Crew for everything you do. Again, anybody that has made the super chats or any donations, God bless. We really, really appreciate that so very much. Never expected, but always appreciated. You guys are amazing. Much love, everyone. Don't forget to love yourselves and love each other. Don't change nothing. You're the beautiful people, and we will see you guys very soon. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye, guys. I'll see you later.
Typing at the speed of light, hunting down the shadows, bringing wrongs to right, digging deep in the data facts, sharp as a knife. With every single story, he's fighting for a life. A voice for the voiceless, he won't stay quiet. Daniel's got the fire igniting the fight. True crime revelations shining through the night. With every victim story, he pulls at the strings. A hero in the darkness, hear the truth he brings. Streaming loud and clear, cracking cases, open hearts filled with fear. His channel's a beacon in a world gone wrong. He guides us through the chaos, a soldier so strong. The clicks and the lights, they follow his lead. With every new case he plants a new seed, sharing their stories, giving hope where it fades. Daniel's a warrior through the trials he waves. In a world of silence, he shouts out their names. Daniel's got the fire igniting the fight. True crime revelation shining through the night. With every victim story he pulls at the strings. A hero in the darkness, hear the truth he brings. From the shadows you rise, streaming loud and clear. True crime revelation shining through the night. With every victim story he pulls at the strings. A hero in the darkness, hear the truth he brings. From the shadows and loneliness, he won't let us fall. Bringing the truth out, answering the call. For every soul forgotten, he's here to stand tall. Tangle the genuine, he'll always give it his all. Dangle's got the fire igniting the fight. True crime revelation shining through the night. With every day